Hello, and welcome to our lesson lab on how you can build inspiring lessons combining Newsela and Quizlet. I'm JJ. I'm a community manager at Newsela, and I am looking forward to sharing some best practices with you today.
And I am Yasmin, and I am the project manager at Quizlet for the Be the Change initiative. And I'm looking forward to showing you how we can incorporate our Quizlet lessons for Be the Change with the new Zella content. And to tell
Excellent. We're
you, okay.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
And to tell you a little bit more about Quizlet, in case you're not familiar, Quizlet is a global learning platform that provides engaging study tools that help students work toward mastery learning. Teachers and students love Quizlet because there's over 450 million study sets that are available for you to use. You can either search by topic or you can create your own to be able to teach or learn about any topic. Currently, over 60 million teachers and students use Quizlet, which I feel like is a testament to how easily accessible and beneficial the platform is.
Thanks, Yasmin. We're so happy that you were able to join us today. And, one of the things that educators tell me most about their applications of Newsela is they're able to find so much great content and love that differentiation on Newsela, but they're always looking for ways to further customize some of their assessment experiences. And so I'm excited to share with this combination with Quizlet how educators can really take some of that feedback that they've been asking and leverage some of the questions and vocabulary quizzes that have already been created by Quizlet, and also use that to leverage some of the customization that they can use with their extension of Newsela content. So today we're going to be really leveraging some of the content that was created in partnership for Black History Month with Quizlet's Be the Change collection, but we'll also share some of the ways that you can take that a step further at any point of the year. You'll also see that we're going to link you to a discussion in our Newsela community. Our Newsela community is a space for educators to be sharing best practices and having conversations with one another. We hope that you'll use this discussion today, not only for the links to the resources that we'll be sharing throughout our session, but to really share out what you've learned, share out those connections and next steps for other educators to learn with you. So I'm going to kick it off by sharing one of our overviews of Newsela and a collection that we created, which links to Quizlet, which is our Black Barriers collection. Barrier Breakers collection, I'm sorry. So in this collection, this is a variety of some of Newsela's best nonfiction article content, including biographies, explainer articles, and some really inspiring stories from these Black barrier breakers. So what I'm going to show you is just a quick way in which you can create an assignment. With Newsela, if you're new, all of our articles are differentiated at 5 different reading levels. So you're able to adapt to meet your students at their instructional level. You can also take this full collection of articles to create your assignment. So I'm going to show you just quickly how you can click this link to create your assignment, add in your instructions, and share it with your classes in just a few easy clicks. Back. And just like that, I'm going to assign this to my students. So they'll have access to all those articles, allowing them some great choice. You'll also see that in the instructions for this text set, there was a link to a Quizlet flashcard set. So I'm going to click on that link, and now I'm going to invite Yasmin to tell us more about how to really leverage this connection.
Yeah, no, definitely, JJ. So, of course, Quizlet flashcards are amazing for classroom use, if you are, regardless if you're in person or if you're virtual, regardless if you're having the students do it right during that class time or if you're having them do it for homework as a review. So, essentially, you can have your flashcards the way that they already are, where they're kind of in that traditional view where you have the definition on one side, you have the term on the other. And so you could start with either one. You could say, hey, I know this term I think this is the definition, and flip it over, or say based on the definition, let me guess what term this is. So that's pretty much the traditional way you could utilize the flashcards. Another way that you could use the flashcards is where it says test. And so that particular test mode should allow you, and again, you can easily link it if you have like a Google Classroom. You could have it to where students are being able to match up terms kind of in a true or false mode. And so that kind of provides them an opportunity to quiz themselves right then and there in the moment. Then there is another feature that is called match. For that particular feature, it will allow students to kind of gamify their experience as far as matching goes. So they have the opportunity to kind of drag and drop around. And so I feel like that's really engaging for students, especially to kind of quickly assess themselves, as well as if you have this as a screen share and it's timing them to kind of be in a game mode. So that definitely is fun for students to engage in. And then overall, I think the benefit of the flashcards is that it provides a quick way to check for understanding. So regardless if you're a teacher or if you're in the student role, that you have the ability to kind of see where you are with the terminology that will help assist you with reading some of the additional Newsela article content, because they are direct terms that come from that particular article.
Yeah, and I just had fun doing that kind of on the spot, matching those articles, really seeing those connection terms and going back and forth. And of course, your students could have those Newsela articles where they would have learned or seen those terms to go back and check for understanding and make sure that they're seeing those connections really clearly.
Wonderful. All right, and now I want to go ahead and give you guys an overview of what Be the Change is. So if you're not familiar, this is the home landing page for Be the Change. Essentially, it is a social justice content library filled with free, ready to use study sets and lesson plans that incorporate the content from our partners, such as Newsela. We heard that teachers were looking for relevant and impactful content that they could bring into their classroom spaces. So we created lesson plans that could easily be incorporated into the classroom, whether, again, if you're a person or if you're virtual. And they're organized by themes that you'll see if you scroll down here, by race and ethnicity, gender and identity, immigration, class, bullying and bias, and rights and activism. So even if you're looking for resources that are just to celebrate heritage months or for particular current events that are happening, you have a plethora of content that you could pull from based on these particular themes. And
That's
now
very
I'm
cool.
going to go. Thank you. I really enjoy it, especially as a former classroom educator. I think a lot of times educators want to have these conversations with students, but sometimes they don't know where to go or where to start. And so I think by having these lesson plans, pairing them with the Newsela articles is a great way to go about doing that. And so I want to kind of dive into what exactly a lesson plan would look like. So, of course, if you scroll down, we have lesson plans that are kind of highlighted here. As you see, they're varying in their different topics, and they kind of have those sets that are already there for you. And so we highlighted some that are linked to articles as well, if you wanted to search that way. But if you were to click one of these, you would be able to see all of the different particular lesson plans that are under the umbrella that it has. So here under race and ethnicity, we have different ones, but I'm going to walk you through the Martin Luther King Jr. and the Unsung Heroes of the Civil Rights Movement lesson plan. So if you click here, it will then pop you open to a folder that has an actual written lesson plan, but then also has this wonderful opportunity for you to utilize these slides within your classroom. I know that as educators, it's really great to kind of have that step-by-step lesson plan, but to have to say, okay, now I need to find a way to, put this in a visual format for my students, still has an opportunity to where you have to create something that might take you 30 minutes, an hour, maybe 2 hours, especially if you're learning some of that content too while you're putting it together. So with these particular slides, it gives you the opportunity, number one, to be able to kind of download them, to pull out what you would like to kind of tweak, maybe for your particular classroom environment. But if you notice here, these are operating through Google Slides, but they can easily be downloaded into a regular Microsoft PowerPoint form. So of course, it will always start kind of with this cover page as you see here. It's always going to showcase which particular band that it's under. So this one again is linked to race and ethnicity, but it could also be activism as well. It's always going to start with some type of essential question. So in this case, why is it important to remember unsung heroes of the civil rights movement in addition to Martin Luther King Jr.? So of course, we know all the amazing work that Martin Luther King has done throughout his career when he was doing his activism for civil rights. However, there's a lot of individuals that we call unsung heroes because sometimes their work isn't directly discussed, right? And so, in order for these movements to transpire, you have to have these individuals that are on the ground that are helping to make that happen. So, we have this synopsis. So, of course, it's important to kind of situate the lesson plan for your students. Why is this important for them to learn about, to understand? Especially when we're looking at something that they might look at as, oh, this happened in the past, has nothing to do with me, but it definitely does, right? And so we want to make sure that they have that synopsis. And if you want that kind of full lesson plan that is in a document form, you can click here and it will take you to that form to where it will kind of give you that breakdown of exactly what you see here, but in a document. Next, we want to move to some tiered vocabulary. So this vocabulary that you see here is going to be the same vocab that you see within the Quizlet sets. And we pull this directly from the articles that we were using to support this particular lesson. And so we want to make sure that we're honing in vocabulary, the importance of that, tiering it so that students can kind of see how there is a development and, kind of general information going into actual individuals that acted within the civil rights movement. And again, it pairs right directly with that Quizlet set. So if you want to use that, it will match up directly. Agendas are also extremely important. I know a lot of times teachers, they want to show their students, hey, this is what we're going to do for the day. So this kind of breaks that down. And again, you can kind of tweak this and rearrange this however it best works for your class. And so starting with the warm-up, it's a quick video, having students to kind of reflect on the importance of knowing about unsung heroes. And again, having that first kind of step saying, let's use that Quizlet set, let's get interactive with it, right, within the classroom. And I will show you guys later on kind of what you can do in the classroom using that set. Once you move on to activity 2, as you see here, there's some linked articles. You definitely want to make sure that your students are engaging with this Newsela content that you see linked here. And so they could literally just click here and it will link right out to that Newsela article that they're using. And then if you have some students, they get through that information, they want some additional inquiry knowledge on this particular content to further that, you can use these additional links here as well. You'll have, in this case, students will create a storyboard or a comic strip about one of the Newsela articles that they pick to kind of showcase the importance of understanding the broader picture of what Martin Luther King was trying to do, as well as pointing out any unsung heroes that were a part of that. Taking informed action is extremely important because, yes, we want to make sure we're giving students content and information, but we also want to make sure that they can take that and put it into action. And so this provides you a slide for different types of examples of taking informed actions that you could do to kind of get into that kind of civic mindset with your students. And you could use this slide to brainstorm. For example, you could organize a school march or a sit-in that is reflective of Black civil rights. And then, of course, there's always an extension or homework. I know some educators, they do not necessarily do homework, but they call it an extension. So we want to make sure that students can continue to grapple with this information and find fun, interactive ways to do that. So this particular example is creating a design of the unsung hero of the civil rights movement. So they'll pick an individual and create kind of like a storybook about that particular person. And then just lastly, I want to point out some key pieces here. There's a direct correlation to the C3 standards. And so you'll see that taking informed action is in that 4th dimension. but we want to always make sure that we're kind of getting students to get to this point, giving them the background, letting them have some inquiry, using those articles to kind of stimulate that learning to get them to the point where they can take that informed action. And so, again, we want to hone in those historical thinking skills as well, having our students think like historians and getting them to really kind of investigate what's going on within these frameworks. And then we have particular pieces here that kind of showcase the Common Core standards depending on the grade band that you might be using this for in your particular classroom. So yeah, so that definitely is a wonderful example of what you can do. And of course, we have this being perfect for Black History Month, but there definitely are additional lesson plans, kind of as I showed you on the Be the Change site, that you can utilize as well outside of Black History Month.
Thanks. That was such a clear overview, and it's always so exciting to see when you can find a comprehensive lesson or unit experience, really being based, as you're sharing here, in those standards. Also leveraging content so students can learn and read and make those strong connections. And then, of course, those abilities to practice your learning, whether it's by practicing the vocabulary, or you shared some really great project extensions or discussion questions for students to really engage them with that content and with that learning. So this is a really great piece of artifact that teachers can take away immediately. And I always love to share, as an extension of my lessons, either for students that are ready to go above and beyond, or to really help students give some choice into their learning. How can we help students see potentially Black heroes that maybe don't get as much attention in that civil rights movement? So this is another one of our collections that we've created, really representing Black writers in American literary tradition. So this can be a nice extension of some of that work, helping your students read about both the biographies of these authors and how they've really made an impact in American literature.
Yeah, well, that's really great. I think that oftentimes that we look at literature and sometimes we leave out some of those really amazing Black literary forces. And so I think that this particular experience that you have here for students to engage with completely wonderfully pairs with the Be the Change. And so tagging in with the Newsela articles, going here, looking at these resources about these literary forces, and then of course honing it in with any additional kind of unsung heroes, I think is amazing. All right, you guys, now we're going to get to a live demo. And so, like I mentioned when I was talking about the lesson plan and going through that there, of course, are ways that you could just utilize the flashcards to go through the terms, but there's a wonderful interactive way that you can get your class to participate within that. So what you're going to do is when you have your set here in this mode, you'll go ahead and click live. And then once you click live, you have the traditional classic live Quizlet game, but I'm going to show you a new resource called Checkpoint. I think that it's really amazing and you guys will definitely enjoy it. When you come to this particular screen, you'll generally have some music playing. It really reminds you kind of what a Kahoot sounds like. So there's like this music and it's getting everybody kind of excited to get ready to play. But I muted it for this purposes so you can hear what I'm saying. But definitely there is some music there for your students to kind of engage in as you are setting this game up. So with that, you have the option to start with either 12 random terms, and it will select them for you, or you can hand select which ones you might want students to focus on. For this particular kind of experience, I'm going to select a few. You have to at least select 6, so I'm going to do that. So I'm just going to pick 6 random ones here. And again, a good way to do this if you want to pick less than 12 is maybe think about some terms that students might have misconceptions with often, and you could use those as the terms that you're going to focus on. So what I'm going to do to show you kind of how this works is to get some of my colleagues to join in real quick so you can see that. And then as they join in, similar with your students, you will see them pop up here. You're going to need at least 2 students. And so it could have that game mode. And so again, it will show them kind of popping in as they are coming in. If for some reason a student, maybe they type in like an inappropriate name, you can always X this out and then, stop that from being able to be their username. So you have your students in here, they're ready to go. You can either have your students join through this link here and typing in this code, or if you allow phones in your classroom, they can always just scan this QR code, which also quickly allows students to be able to participate. So we have some members in here, so we're going to go ahead and click Create Activity. And so at that point, the definition will come up. Students will be able to take their best educated guesses for what they believe that term is to match that. And you'll see that as people are answering, it will say how many have answered this particular question. And then it will start to provide a countdown for you and the students. And so as it's going through those particular definitions, it will show you how students are answering that, if they're getting it correct, how many are getting it incorrect. And so this is a good way you can kind of see in motion how they're doing and understanding the particular terms. Wonderful. And you can always, if you know that all of your students have answered, say you have 28 kids in the class and you see that 28 answers are there, you can go ahead and continue, and then it will continue just to bring you to see how students did. Clearly B was the correct answer, but 3 out of those 5 students got it correct. And so you might be able to say, hey, maybe there's some misconceptions with this term, just starting to think about that already.
Are the students seeing the correct answers as you move on as well?
I believe that they are, so that they can kind of say, oh man, like, darn, like, maybe they change their mind at the last minute. Sometimes that happens a lot, right? Like, your first mind is generally right, and maybe they switched it. And so that will kind of say, no, I was right. And it will allow them to see that kind of pop up as well, and to see kind of where the class has fallen as a whole. That's a great question, JJ. And then for the purposes of this, I'm going to just skip through these. Again, you can use these kind of pre-created sets that we have here. Again, they pair directly with the articles that we use in the lesson plan from Newsela. But you can also create your own Quizlet sets, just pulling certain particular terms, and do the same thing with this particular game. Do the checkpoint. And then once you're done and complete with the game, you'll be able to, of course, have a leaderboard, which students always love that. They want to see who came in first, right? Who's top 3, right? But there's also more to it than that. You can see the average score of your class as a summary, the highest score, and of course, which scores are 80% or higher. And that's important because generally mastery does start at that 80%. So you'll want to see kind of, all right, well, if that number is not where you want it to be, then maybe there are some terms that you need to kind of go back over. And so if you look at this overview below, out of the 6 terms that I selected, clearly these, students for the most part understand that, right? They know what oppression is, they know what Black nationalism is, and they're kind of iffy on freedom rides, right? Maybe they confuse it with another term that was close, or something that maybe it was like the bus boycott, right? And maybe they mixed that up. But then you also have these terms here, to where clearly, you're probably going to have to go over these, circle back to make sure that students really understand these terms before moving forward, or just find ways to re-loop them within your next day lesson plan, or like in your warm-up. But this is a quick way for, again, a check for understanding, and just to see where maybe misconceptions might lie with your students. And so, and in a fun way too, right? It's not like this boring like quiz that they have to take real quick, right? Kind of, it gamifies the experience for them. So it's definitely cool.
That's great. And I love that the game is already set up. The definitions are already there, created for you. always finding initiatives to help teachers save time and immediately implement something that's engaging and impactful. Are there opportunities for teachers to customize any of those questions or add additional vocabulary within those games?
Yes, you can. So that was what I was saying. You can always add in your own terms by taking some of the terms that are already there, creating your own Quizlet sets from them. And so, and even just kind of cherry picking those terms that you really want to focus on, I think is key. And I feel as though, maybe the 12 terms, maybe you want to kind of speed up the game, you want it to not take as long. And so you say, okay, well, these again are the general terms that students might have misconceptions with. And so that might be the ones that you want to showcase. And of course, you can always pull in additional terms.
Awesome. That's so exciting. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Yasmin, for joining and for Quizlet for partnering on this lesson lab. Just to recap everything that you learned today, we started off by sharing our Black Barrier Breakers collection on Newsela that links to some amazing resources on Quizlet. Yasmin shared the Be the Change initiative and lessons that have complete lesson overviews in those slides with that great extension game that she just modeled for you so students can really practice and check their understanding live with you in the classroom. So we hope that you're able to take these away with you for Black History Month and beyond. You'll see that there is a link to our Newsela community where each of the resources that we have shared today will be available for you to click. And we hope you have conversation with educators to share what you take away or how you might modify it for your classrooms.
Yes, and thank you for having me. I really enjoy being able to showcase all of this great resources that we have on the Be the Change site. So we're constantly updating and expanding that social justice content library. So please go check it out. You'll want to make sure that anything that you might want to talk about definitely should be there. And if not, we're definitely adding content. So you'll make sure that you could do that. And then, of course, you want to follow Quizlet on Twitter where we share lesson plans and relevant content. And we really hope that you try out that Quizlet Live game, either traditional or that checkpoint. And we really would love your feedback on it.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. We hope to see you at another lesson lab and check our entire series of lesson labs for additional ways to incorporate Newsela meaningfully into your classroom. Have a great afternoon.